Oh, sorry. Spoiler alert. They create this atomic bomb.
Yeah, the bomb blows up. Sorry. Sorry. Sorry, sir. Welcome to A Cast with No Name. We are your hosts. I'm Jay.
And I'm Matt.
And this is episode 66. And this episode, we are in a special location for the 10-year PopCon Indy in Indianapolis, day 3. So thank you, Brandon, from the Brandon Peters Show and the PopCon Association for having us today.
Yes, thank you.
So what we're going to be talking about this episode is the Christopher Nolan masterpiece, Oppenheimer, which came out a couple months ago. And,
love the shirt.
Yeah. Nice shirt, buddy. So what we're going to be doing today, we're just going to be doing a normal thing. However, if we say something you guys don't like, you have a differing opinion, please, we encourage you to come up and talk about Oppenheimer with us.
Yes, please.
But let's get down to it. So
We did it.
Oppenheimer.
We finally did
We
it.
finally watched it.
I can't believe it.
After vacations,
Yeah.
kids' activities,
Yep.
everything else that happens in life,
know.
we finally got to see it.
I feel like we were the last people to see this movie.
Sadly, we did not see the Barbenheimer double
No.
feature.
I-
Weren't able to do that.
After seeing this movie, did you want to go see Barbie?
Kind of.
I did too.
Yeah. I was like, because I mean, it's making more money. I was like, it's got to be more, at least relatable for some,
I know.
more so than others.
Yeah, I know.
But yeah, let's get into it. We have a limited time, so we're gonna hit it hard and heavy.
Yep.
But
Let's start with first impressions. What were your first impressions?
my first impressions, first and foremost, it was shot beautifully. I think it looked fantastic.
Yeah.
Looked great. I love the music. There was.
It wasn't Hans Zimmer, by the way. I didn't know that.
It wasn't. It kind of reminded me of what they did with the Interstellar music. So
Right,
Interstellar, he kind of put Hans Zimmer put in clicks or clock ticks.
Or they timed it to
Yep.
the yeah.
And
time dilation. Yeah.
had a lot of kind of realistic sounds incorporated into a score. That I kind of noticed in this one too, with the Geiger counter. They kind of weave that into the music, which I really, really enjoyed. But overall, the main first impression, I thought it was a little too long. And
Don't say.
which I love long run times in movies, but what I mean is
Why did it feel too long for you?
for me, it was, even though I love the music, they put intense music over what felt like most of the movie.
Right.
And we can go into deeper why that really didn't work for me too much, but it was incessant dialogue, which is great. I like those kinds of movies, but with the music over on top of it, and along with the narrative structure as far as how he kind of constructed the story. That's kind of what felt a little too long, because I was missing the rising action, the falling action. I was wondering at what point in the movie am I currently in?
Yeah.
And about the 2.5 hour mark is when
Did your mind wander?
quite a bit. But it's about the 2.5 hour mark was when I first looked at my watch, and I hate having to look at my watch whenever I watch something. But again, shot beautifully. Music was fantastic. I thought the acting was great. But I have some nitpicks and some things that just didn't quite work for me in this movie, which we'll dive in here in a little bit.
Right.
So what was your first impressions?
So we've talked about this before. Christopher Nolan's on my top 5 directors, so the bar is high for this man. And I got to admit, a lot like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, because I put Tarantino at such a high bar, this might be my least favorite Nolan movie.
Really?
I would
Okay.
say. It's probably not a popular opinion, but I'm with you. And we'll get into it. I didn't think the story warranted a 3-hour runtime. I didn't know if the subject matter in the movie warranted 3 hours of explanation.
I don't know. I want to say maybe it could if the narrative structure was set up in a classic narrative structure.
Yeah, it wasn't,
There's
yeah.
some people that I've talked to that actually like that, like how it was presented and everything. It didn't work for me because one, I mean, we'll just get into it with spoilers and everything else. Do you recommend seeing this?
No.
I
No.
I recommend seeing it, maybe not in
Theaters, yeah.
And it kills me just because it looks so good.
It does look good.
And I
Yeah.
love when movies are shot on IMAX. But I would say at least watch it. It's probably going to warrant a rewatch. But
Yeah,
with the
yeah.
length and the way it was kind of paced and everything else, I'm going to have a hard time to want to rewatch this.
Yeah.
Because it's such a long commitment, especially if
You
Yeah.
do need some breaks in there.
yeah.
To
But
break it up a bit.
But let's get into it. So,
Okay.
I guess the biggest issue for me was maybe just the narrative structure.
Right.
Um,
Oh, sorry. Spoiler alert. They create this atomic bomb.
Yeah, the bomb blows up. Sorry. Sorry, sir.
Yeah.
So the narrative structure for me, and again, this is what's going to warrant a rewatch. The way the story was told, with starting out with the hearings, then popping from a smaller hearing to a Senate hearing, back to the beginning of his life, then kind of progresses from there for a little bit in the middle. Being a first-time watcher of it, I didn't read the book, which the book this movie was based on is American Prometheus, which
Yep.
was written about 2005, and that book tells his story in 5 parts, and it's fairly linear. It's beginning of his childhood and how he had a great love for the American Southwest, how
Yep.
he loved mathematics and science and all that, and then it kind of went into his college years, then him heading up the Manhattan Project of Los Alamos, and then it kind of goes into his personal side of things, and then how America kind of took away his notoriety or just kind of diminished his character as a person.
Did you know about any of the history before you watched it?
I didn't,
I
and
didn't either.
and that's why, because I felt like I should have read that book before I watched this
Yes,
movie.
yeah.
And when I watch a movie, and this is just me personally, I feel like I shouldn't have to do homework
Yeah.
to go into a movie to enjoy
Yep.
it. And I felt like I was missing quite a lot. I feel like this movie was possibly made for, at least from my point of view, people who are already well aware of the story or had some kind of familiarity with the
Right.
subject matter, as opposed to kind of going in blind. Because since we started doing the show, I've changed completely the way I go into movies, to where I don't research anything. I'll watch a trailer or two, but that's about it.
Right.
And I don't
want
wanna
your opinion
spoil
tainted?
anything. Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't want my opinion tainted. I just want to go in there as a blank slate.
Right.
So as the narrative structure, the reason why it kind of didn't work for me, I didn't have any relation as far as the differences in time. I mean, I know they shot stuff in black and white that took place during a certain time, but as far as chronological order, when the years this happened, they said it in dialogue, but it was very quick, very passing in a 3-hour-long movie.
Yep.
It's hard to kind of, at least for me, to kind of keep that in order. And so some of the, I guess, not treason, but just kind of like the backstabbing that happens because of what Oppenheimer has done, I think it would have hit for me a little bit more if I would have had some kind of concept
Background.
as far as how long did that happen, or how recent did that happen? Did someone hold a grudge for X amount of years? I had no relative notion as far as when these things kind of happen to each other. I knew this happened before that, but how long ago? And some of that I feel like may have been, I think, maybe worked a little bit better if it was more of a linear narrative, or the
Right.
story was told in a more linear way.
Right. Well, I think that's a drawback in the movie, though. I don't think a lot of people know the background and the story of Oppenheimer, especially they know about the atomic bomb and the Manhattan Project, but the hearings where I already forget the senator's name. I think it was Senator Strauss.
Strauss, yep.
Right, where he was being appointed or confirmed on whatever intelligence committee he was supposed to be appointed to. Like, no one knows that story.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, when I'm watching it, I'm like you said, I'm doing homework while I'm watching the movie, trying to figure out what are we doing here?
Yeah.
What's the point of this?
Mm-hmm.
And it would have hit harder if I already had background and a knowledge of what exactly we're even watching.
Yeah. And I think what I'll probably end up doing before I do a rewatch is reading that.
Exactly.
Just to get more background, get more familiarity, because it's just kind of jumping into it, which I love. Like, you have movies like Cool Hand Luke, to where it just kind of jumps you in the middle of a
Yeah.
situation with characters. This movie kind of does that too, but because of the back and forth with the narrative structure of when things happen it was hard for me on a first viewing to be able to connect those pieces and feel anything really emotionally about these characters. A lot of the characters that I felt an emotional connection to were side characters. So Emily Blunt's character, Kitty Oppenheimer, Matt Damon's character, David Krumholtz, I gravitated more towards those characters. I feel like because some of their situations were presented a little bit more linearly, or you felt a little bit more traditional flow as far as what they experienced with Oppenheimer. So I think that's probably why I connected with that, to where at the end of this movie, I kind of just felt not bland, but just not sure what to feel. Like
right.
I mean, I kind of felt, oh yeah, they kind of screwed the guy over.
Yeah.
But I feel like maybe.
Do you think they should have even had that in the movie? Like the whole hearing thing?
I think if they did, I think it would, because Aviator kind of played on it with that. They kind of go to the hearing and they kind of hit back and forth. I don't. If you wanted to jump around, I think keep it at one specific spot.
Yep.
Going from the Senate hearing to the more private initial hearing, as far as getting a security clearance. And then hopping back and forth between those 3 points. I think if they would have left it at 2, I think it would probably, at least for me, been a little bit more impactful.
Yeah.
And one, easier to follow because I'm an idiot. So.
Oh, you're real smart.
I know. I read books, but they got to have pictures. And
sure.
So, but I think it would have just been a little bit, I guess, more beneficial for, idiots like me to
for
be
the
able
layman.
to follow it. Yeah,
for
the
layman.
layman.
Say it. It's fine.
And. But I
so
think
you would have structured it more linearly.
Yeah. And you could have had to go back and forth between the Senate hearing, because then you could kind of play maybe they're celebrating him, or just talking about his, and then you have at the end to where, no, this whole thing was just to kind of degrade and diminish his contribution to science, to what he did for the American country and all that stuff.
Right.
So, that was the main thing that didn't work.
Right.
Because it just kind of gave me the lack of proper context throughout the whole film.
That's fair.
But what were some of your favorite aspects of this?
The acting was unbelievable. Everyone in it was great. I love when actors pop up when you don't expect it. Like Casey Affleck was the, what was he like? He was like the super secret general. Yeah. Is that it?
Yeah. Yeah, he was like Matt Damon's boss.
I think that was his character
like
name,
yeah.
Super Secret General.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So he popped up. I wasn't expecting him. He was great. Kenneth Branagh.
Mm-hmm.
Come on.
Tony Goldwyn.
Yes.
And
yeah.
Who?
Yeah,
Benny Safdie.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And a lot of heavy hitters, a lot of great character actors.
I thought Matt Damon was awesome.
Yeah, Josh Hartnett.
Yeah.
I always like seeing him in things.
In Krumholtz, I wasn't. I was like, that is David Krumholtz.
Bernard from the Santa Claus fame.
Yeah, Bernard can act.
Yeah, acting I thought was great.
The script was. I'll say this: it is impressive that. The script is really, really good because you're fitting so much. Even in 3 hours, it felt rushed because they're trying to cram everything in it.
Yeah.
And that's, again, it's a drawback. But at the same time, given what they had, to fit that into 3 hours is pretty impressive. Like you said, it's shot beautifully.
Yeah, I like that it's mainly a drama, but it was still shot in IMAX.
Yes.
However, the entire time...
Are you like, why are they shooting this in IMAX?
I was like...
I was thinking the same thing.
Well, I was just thinking, I was like, not why are they shooting in IMAX, but I was just thinking, I was like, man, if David Fincher directed this. And this is like what-if situations to where... Nolan isn't necessarily... in my opinion, great at dramatic.
You've said this before.
Things, and I think there's some people that can hit emotional beats in films a lot better than others. And
I would agree. Yeah. With Nolan, that's not a strong suit.
Yeah, like James, we saw Nolan, and right after I saw Nolan, we saw Guardians of the Galaxy 3 on streaming. And I had tears in my eyes watching that movie, and I felt nothing during Oppenheimer, which I feel like I should have been.
Did you really cry during Guardians 3?
I didn't cry, but I was like starting to tear. I was bawling in the corner, and my daughters were asking, "Daddy, why are you crying?" But I think
that is a good movie.
Yeah, it's expected. But
not to go on a tangent here, but I did watch Volume 3 the other day, and I was not expecting it to be that emotional.
Yeah,
It was very good.
It was great.
It was good.
fantastic. And
Yeah.
and granted, you were introduced to those characters and you've been exposed to them over
right.
multiple movies.
Right.
But at the same time, 3-hour runtime, you should still be able to hit those kind of beats. Now, one thing that did work for me. There was a lot of flack when this movie came out when they were talking about the nudity in the movie.
Yeah.
And there's two notable parts. One in a hotel room where they're sitting on chairs and they're kind of Oppenheimer and Florence
Pitt.
are talking. Oppenheimer's pretty much saying, "I'm not going to see you again."
Yeah.
And which that left me with a very distinct feeling of I never want to sit in a hotel chair again. But so you had that scene, and then you had another scene which had the more notable nudity is when Oppenheimer is being questioned by the smaller hearing as far as getting his security clearance reinstated, and you look from Emily Blunt's point of view, and you see Florence Pugh on top of Oppenheimer, and they're acting out. I thought that was a phenomenally shot. I thought it worked. A lot of people brought up conversations as far as, narratively, does it make sense? I was like, absolutely. That is probably the first instance I can remember as far as, other than, that movie, The Best Man with Taye Diggs. So that movie had another kind of, it reminded me of that scene to where they're having the wedding scene at at the end of that movie, and you see the groom's flashback or his imagination of his wife as his wife's walking up, because his wife had relations with his best man. That you kind of see his mental image, and he's just kind of plowing through, going through that to get married anyways. But you could always see that kind of recollection of what he's always kind of going to think about whenever he looks at her. And I think they did a similar thing with that, with Emily Blunt looking at Oppenheimer, and they're discussing his relationship with Florence Pugh's character, and all she can see is just what they did in her imagination. I thought that was very effectual, very good as far as kind of illustrating the trauma that you have when your partner does commit infidelity or something like that. I thought it was very well done, illustrated the point very, very well. It's probably one of my favorite parts of the movie, just because it was kind of like a kick in the stomach. Like, you immediately know how she feels as this gets brought up. Even though she's well aware of what happened, it still hurts, and it's very real, very very well done.
Well, and you have Emily Blunt.
Yeah.
She's awesome.
Yeah, awesome at acting. Her portion in the hearing, phenomenal.
Yeah, very good. I'll counterpoint that. I agree with you that I think, and I didn't know that this was like a controversial thing. I had no idea.
Yeah.
So I wasn't expecting it, but I agree with you that it was used strategically. And it had some dramatic impact, emotional beats, but I still don't understand. I don't understand why there needs to be nudity in movies anymore. As I get older, this is my old crotchety old man. It's like, boo.
So
I just don't get it anymore.
I
don't
agree.
know why
Most
you
of
would
the
need
time, it's probably not warranted. However, I do think I think it's warranted in some spots. Because, I mean, you have the sitcom situation where you have the L sheet.
The
sheet. I mean, it immediately takes me out of the movie.
Right.
So I'm like, well, obviously it wasn't in their contract, kind of a thing. Not that, but I agree. I think there's some scenes that can be left alone, because a lot of the times it is put in there for
Well, the scene you're talking about, I was thinking to myself, wow, this is taking longer than it should. Like, why is there a 30-second shot of this? I get it. I get it, Chris. You could have done 5 seconds. It would have been fine. But, right now I'm fighting with my 18-year-old self. But anyway.
But, yeah. I mean, and part of maybe the reason why it was so lengthened is to make the audience feel uncomfortable.
That could be it.
And just
fair.
kind of get that across.
Yeah.
So yes, go. Yeah.
What did you think of? So, I love movies like this, and I wish the movie was more about. I was more interested in the making of the bomb and that whole process, the troubleshooting, figuring it out, problem-solving process. The movie I think of right away is Apollo 13, where I know the ending of the movie, but that whole movie is about problem-solving, and it's very thrilling and impactful. I wish this movie was just about that. I think it would have been better. But once we get to the point of the bomb, what did you think of the bomb itself, like that whole scene?
I thought it was okay.
I thought it was underwhelming.
My favorite explosion was when they were testing the detonator.
Right.
And you had that little shock wave coming after it, and I enjoyed that scene more. But I mean, with the making of the bomb, I mean, I was kind of part about that. But I mean, overall, obviously, I think and someone chime in if you have a different thing that you want to kind of note. But I feel like most of the film was about how this person dedicated a portion of his life, how he was with the people around him. It was more about the person and how a country that he gave like total loyalty to treated him in the end, and how we do that to our quote-unquote national heroes that kind of put us above other, because it wasn't really glorifying the bomb. I think it was more of a statement almost as far as I mean, how we treat people in this country once we get what we want out of them.
Right. Part of me thinks it was an excuse for him to make basically a biography about Oppenheimer, and he's like, oh, by the way, there's going to be an explosion. There's going to be an explosion in the middle of this.
All right, that's how I get people in seats.
This is how I got the movie Greenland. It's gonna be an atomic bomb that's going to be, get the butts in the seats.
Yeah. Sir, what do you think?
Yes.
What's your name?
I'm Alan.
Alan?
Alan?
So the bomb, what did you think of the gymnasium speech after the bomb, where they did the bomb again?
Oh.
That I enjoyed.
I enjoyed it more than the actual bomb.
Yeah. And I thought it was a great show. I mean, I liked how it kind of intercut between everyone cheering, and you would just see his face, his reaction, his knowledge as far as what happened to other people, and then he has to say that cliche rah-rah, go team portion of the speech. Everyone loses their mind again.
Right.
To where I enjoyed that scene because it showed the conflict as far as what he was able to bring to the world, but also it mirrored the destruction that he caused. And he's and the fact that it's kind of torn. Like, it's his greatest achievement in life, but it's the effects of that achievement has such a drastic effect on anybody who's truly directly affected by it.
Right. So I thought the second. So when I saw it in the 70 millimeter IMAX, it was packed, and when the second bomb went off, the whole place like rose up 2 feet, like in the air, because no one knew it was coming. They jumped with the first bomb because there's a delay,
Right.
sound, but the second one, the place freaked out.
Really?
It's like one of my favorite things going to a theater ever seeing in a movie was that moment, just feeling the whole place rise up out of their seats because you didn't know it was coming.
Wow.
So that was a pretty impactful moment.
See, that's where I messed up, because that's how it's supposed to be seen, probably. I saw it at Regal on a normal screen.
Oh, with that terrible intro they have. Like, I can't go to a Regal with that intro, like, where they're all quoting movies and
Yeah, it is pretty bad.
Oh, they do have a booth here, but good theater. But I'm higher on the movie than you guys. I really liked it a lot, but I'm kind of so you said like, oh, I think it might be my least favorite. So I come out of it, I'm like, I really like this movie, and then I'm like, where's it at with me and Nolan? So I'm like, is it better than like Interstellar? No. Is it better than Inception? No. Dark Knight? No. And it was like going down the line, but I like it better than Insomnia.
Yeah.
Or his first one. What was
Following?
Black Following.
Following, yeah.
I don't know. I might have liked it better than Dunkirk, but like in there. But I'm like, oh, that's weird because I
Memento.
really enjoyed this movie. But like Tarantino, like so, I love Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
It's like his favorite one.
I think it's a great hangout, got a vibe,
Yeah.
and like that. So, but I'm agree with you. I'm like, I come out high, like so. You're like, but I'm high on it. But I'm still like, well, in the Nolan chain,
Yeah.
it might be low, but it's a well-made movie.
It really is. Yeah.
I like shooting a drama in IMAX like that, like because I have a friend and I talk about how movies today don't even like. So many people can make movies, which is great, but we don't even shoot talking scenes interesting anymore.
No, we don't.
This one does, and that's
does.
why like they just it's two people get them back forth, and that's what I loved about this is like even the just talking it is all talking, but even when people can just shoot people talking interestingly, take the time, be like where can we be effective and convey something, like even the boring decisions are made aren't even a boring shot, but just to take the care to make it look interesting was good enough for me. The high technical value will win me over anyway. It flew by for me, so I get the 3-hour thing. That's fine. And then I don't know. I see Nolan, a lot of Nolan thing narratively. I'm expecting stuff like that. I didn't know anything about American Prometheus beforehand, but I learned a lot when watching this movie. So I did like that there was a duality with him and Strauss getting denied that I kind of like. And I kept thinking, because I didn't know anything, I'm like, Oppenheimer's going to show up in the courtroom, right? Like, this is what we're leading to. And it was like something, like he had a presence there that was not there, but it was there strongly and stuff. And then revealing him to be a villain, something that in a biopic is weird but effective for me. So, I don't know. Like I said, I was very high on this movie, but like low on the chain of Nolan. But I had a good time with it, and yeah, I didn't know anything about it. There were some things that I'm like, okay, but Nolan's a vibe guy where he gives the audience credit. He's like, I trust that you're a smart person, and I don't need to spoon feed things to you.
I do like that.
And I like, and it's that's here, that's Tenet, that's Inception, like, and that's what I kind of love about him. But yeah, and I'm interested to see a second time if it's as effective for me as it was, But you guys took forever. I saw opening hype Barbenheimer. I saw Barbie on Sunday, and then Oppenheimer on Monday. So I got in the fever of that, and it was 70 millimeter, and I was excited. I took my son to it, and it was just a good experience, and I liked it a lot. So I went during the hype. You guys let it go, but I agree. I don't disagree with your opinions up here, but I guess I'm high on the movie, but I understand the qualms. So
yeah,
and I think that's something to note too, because the only thing that I've been looking at after we watched is I was eager to see what other people's feedback was. And a lot of people, and I think it's probably the same kind of people that went and saw it during the hype while everyone's in there, because that will definitely change your feeling of a movie.
Yeah.
I think one of my best theater-going experiences was going to see Grindhouse. And it was opening night, first night. Wasn't even like a thing. It was just we were bored that night. Let's go see Grindhouse. And it was the perfect atmosphere, the perfect audience, because you had a bunch of Robert Rodriguez, a bunch of Tarantino fans, and it was the correct attitude in there. Right. And it was fantastic.
You'd be stunned that movie bombed with how hyped your screenings were.
Yeah.
I saw it at the Chinese Theater open weekend, and it was like, this is a great week. Everybody was like partying. It was felt like a party. Everybody got it. And nobody was going to see that movie.
Chinese Theater in L.A.?
Yeah.
Oh,
that's
awesome.
where I went. Yeah, it was down the street from my apartment. And
cool.
I went to it, and just it was. We were all talking about it that weekend, and we saw the box office. And we're like, well, it was crowded over there. Like, what happened? But and one person told me, hey, the advertisements was, hey, we're making intentionally poor movies. Come see them. 2 of them.
Yeah.
But now I don't know. There's appreciation for it, and those who saw it, but yeah, for sure. I'm Alan.
Thank you, Alan.
Thanks, Alan.
So, yeah, I will let you guys back to your thing.
Alan touched on something. He was talking about the dialogue scenes.
Yeah.
And so, and I touched on the music. I enjoyed the music. I enjoyed the dialogue scenes. One of my favorite. I liked Emily Blunt's hearing scene, and then I liked, I believe it was like after a reception or some kind of event, and they were sitting around a cocktail table at the end of it, and they were kind of discussing the next phase as far as what they needed to do.
Oh, okay, yes.
Yeah. I enjoyed that scene. The use of music, the music itself, amazing, love it. But the use of music throughout that whole movie, I felt was kind of detrimental because it had that. I mean, the music was just intense music throughout the entire movie.
I was going to ask you about that. So
and
everyone was talking about the intensity of the music throughout the dialogue scenes that it would kind of drown out people talking.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't get that sense at Regal, but in IMAX, was it?
So yeah, the theater
times?
I was in, they had a little bit better sound system, and at times it would drown out. Because I saw John Wick 4 in the same theater.
Yeah.
The exact same theater, and it's still the same, to where I was like, crap, where are the subtitles? And
for a John Wick movie? Where are the subtitles?
And
I need some context.
But, so, I mean, it would kind of drown out, but it was more of like the feeling that you were getting, because it felt like the whole movie was feeling kind of intense throughout the entire 3-hour runtime. And I used musical cues to kind of
reorient yourself.
This is important.
Yeah.
This is supposed to be kind of a lull. So, like, I think music, when used well, it kind of guides the audience, how they should be feeling emotionally, what they should be paying attention to, what is building up to something great. And a lot of the music was just very epic sounding, intense music, and being placed throughout the whole film, along with the nonlinear narrative structure. It felt like, okay, everything is important, which that I get, but I couldn't pick up on the varying degrees of importance. I didn't know, should I really be paying attention to this, or should I not let my mind wander, or is this just kind of like we're transitioning to the next thing, setting up for the next scene kind of a thing. It felt like everything was always important, always intense. But
that's what he wanted. Everything's important.
Yeah, but the effectiveness, I think, has been used better for some movies, like Uncut Gems.
Yeah.
I was on the edge of my seat feeling anxiety the entire movie.
Oh, it's like a panic attack in
and
that movie.
I don't know if it was Nolan's intention to kind of have people have that anxiety. Like, I felt like, okay,
maybe
everything's important, but it didn't. I feel like it was executed a little bit better in Uncut Gems. Granted, totally a different movie, but that sense of uneasiness throughout the whole watching experience, I feel like, was a lot better. But that movie was also considerably shorter than what this movie was. So I don't know if I just kind of got numb to it. But I think the use of the music that was created, I think, didn't work as well for me. It felt too over the top every single scene, to where I couldn't differentiate, okay, hey, maybe I should pay attention to this a little bit more. Which, granted, I like how when Alan said earlier, he doesn't hold your hand necessarily.
Yeah.
But I think in some instances it's okay, especially for a 3-hour duration. I think.
Were you surprised that he didn't go into the details, like more dialogue about physics and quantum mechanics? Because I was expecting that, like, okay, we're gonna go down the rabbit hole of like equations and stuff.
I
because
think
of like Tenet, Tenet, they're just over-explain entropy and stuff. So I was expecting that to be the same thing here in this movie, and it wasn't at all.
And I don't think he went. Yeah, he didn't go that deep.
Not
into
really.
It. They kind of spoke in a broad spectrum,
broad
which
brushes.
maybe he was not allowed. I mean, maybe there's so much detail you can't really go into. But I think I was okay with that, not going deep down into it, because it should. I mean, I feel like this movie was more about the actual characters.
Yeah, it was,
and the result of that. But
I thought it was funny that they thought they were gonna like catch the atmosphere on fire.
Yeah, I mean,
he's like, look at this equation I just made. I'm like, they're reading it. And I'm like,
and granted, I mean, I feel like, and that's why I'm like, I feel like the subject matter might have been handled, and not that Christopher Nolan is a bad director, but he's better at some things than he is at others.
Not that he's a bad director.
But he's
yeah, he's all right.
Okay, I think he's got another job.
All right. He's probably the only guy who could make him or Tarantino like, hey, I want to make a movie about Oppenheimer, a 3-hour biopic, and guess what? I want to shoot it in IMAX.
Yeah, and I love that he has
$200 million.
I love that he has that power. And I love that he has that kind of power, that he can take a small subject like that and really blow it up, shoot it in IMAX, get the budget that he wants. And, well, I guess Universal now will give him the thumbs up, because I'm not sure if he's with Warner Brothers.
It wasn't Warner, it was Universal.
But I do think I was more interested to see, I was like, I would love to see David Fincher direct this in IMAX.
Hey! Good morning! Y'all ain't come over to Michael Rooker's table yet and spent the rest of your money. Get your asses over there.
Thank you, Michael Rooker.
I ain't gonna be here all day. I'm gonna go drink.
What is that, Xandu? Dude, I just watched Cliffhanger the other day. I love that movie. He's so good in it.
I always think of Mallrats first.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's another good one.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, yeah?
But the...
Could you imagine shopping for chocolates and then, like, Michael Rooker's right next to you? That'd be funny.
But I'm glad the movie was successful. I'm glad he
Yeah.
shot a dramatic movie in IMAX.
Yeah.
But I would be eager to see other directors take on that as well. Just better dramatic directors.
So when you were watching this and you thought David Fincher, were you thinking like, ooh, Zodiac? Like if we shoot this like,
yeah.
yeah, you like you some Zodiac for sure.
Yeah, love me some Zodiac. But I was also thinking about The Social Network. I mean,
yeah.
Because my mind, the other thing with this, because it was so long, there was a lot of talking, which I sound like an idiot for saying this, but my mind would wander.
We have a podcast and we're talking.
Yeah. My mind would wander when I was watching this movie, and it wouldn't be long. It would be 5 seconds.
Yeah.
But within that 5 seconds, I would have to snap myself out. I'm like, oh, crap, I got to be paying attention. And maybe that's just my attention span. Maybe it's just because I didn't gravitate to the story. And this was like an hour into it, hour and a half into it. My mind would just start to wander because I didn't have a context. I didn't have any kind of assumptions. And I really wasn't that engrossed in the story.
Yeah.
And that's what did it. And I feel like there are several things that contributed to that. Most of all was the narrative flow, the music. And so then my mind would kind of start to drift.
I'm not going to lie. After the bomb went off, like the last hour of that movie, I was kind of like trailing off because the big payoff was what was the actual context of the conversation between him and Einstein that set Strauss off?
Yeah.
Like that was the big revelation, and it didn't hit as hard as I thought it was going to.
It didn't hit for me either. It felt like, because during that scene when Robert Downey Jr. was kind of going on, I was like, well, he did this and this and this. And I was like, he feels like a child.
Yeah.
Which is fine. I'm sure people in politics and people in positions of power hold grudges like that on the most minute, stupid things.
Yeah.
And I like that aspect of the story. However, I don't feel like it paid off that well. He came off as like a campy villain.
I don't think it did.
And the payoff of I'm just unsure of what the effect he wanted to have during that scene was. And I was just unsure of what he was trying to say. If he was just, I'm going to present this movie, here's the facts, you feel how you want to feel, okay, but typically, I mean, you want to have a voice when you do a biopic. You want to have some kind of message, and I feel like that message for me was muddled because after I got done watching it, I was just unsure of what to feel after I watched it. Christy and I walked out of the theater, and
what'd she say? Did she like it?
She was like, "It's good," which is her typical. She doesn't want to say anything.
It's fine.
I always put her on the spot because she but I think we both were just indifferent about it, and I think I was expecting more because I love Nolan's work. I love the chances that he takes.
It was so hyped.
Yeah, it was.
That's why.
And I just think it might have, the subject matter, I think, might have lent itself better to a different director. I think Nolan is great at spectacle. Setting emotional beats within films, I don't think is a strong suit. And I think a director like David Fincher, who can make coding in The Social Network look interesting and kind of engage you that way, he's very effective at that. And so the whole movie, I was honestly thinking, I was like, man, I wonder how this would look if it was directed by Fincher and written by Aaron Sorkin. And because this kind of feels more like a movie up his alley, more so than Christopher Nolan's alley.
I agree with you.
Christopher Nolan, I feel like, is more high concept.
Yeah.
And maybe he kind of gravitated toward this because he wanted either creative limitations or something. I mean, he hasn't really done a biopic before, so...
No. I don't think it warrants it's not a spectacle. I mean, obviously the setting up of the bomb is spectacle, but everything else is not.
Yeah, it's a dramatic movie.
Yeah.
And if he was going to do that, I think my biggest thing, he should just, in my mind, maybe, I think it would have been a little bit more impactful if he had it more in a linear storytelling format, more of a straightforward.
You can't tell stories in linear fashion anymore.
But it's I mean, I think I was talking to Alan before the show, and he was saying how that worked for him because it was better than a normal biopic.
Right.
But with the biopic, you kind of grow with that
the character. Yeah.
And if you want to be if you want that relationship with that character, it's a lot easier to obviously start from the beginning. You're experiencing their childhood along with them. You start looking at things through their viewpoint, and then that helps you connect with the character. But maybe he wanted to keep it more factual, based on actual accounts, not dramatize or take creative license for a lot of things, which I could see him wanting to do. He wants to be fact-based. But I think we need to have somebody we travel along with in that journey, and it was tough to do that with the main character because Cillian Murphy's performance, although great, it was very stoic, and that may have been how he was as a person.
Yeah.
And I think that's the importance of taking some creative liberties when telling a story, is getting somebody on that side with getting the audience on that side with that person, so that way you can tell it.
Right.
Because my initial response walking out of the theater was, I kind of want to see this entire story from the point of view of Kitty Oppenheimer.
Right.
Because she was the one I connected to most throughout that film.
And I agree with you. I thought Cillian, is it Cillian or
Cillian.
Cillian. He was great, but I was thinking the whole time, like, this is kind of, he's doing great, but it's kind of one note. His personality, he doesn't really have a. He has a personality, but he doesn't have a personality. If that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's not obviously a comic book character.
No.
He's very, which I thought, he did a great job, and I think that would have helped a little bit more if we saw him grow up. We were kind of grown with him, and we understand his personality better. To where if he's more of a reserved person, but then you can let loose those small tweaks in your acting performance throughout the movie where the audience will immediately get, oh, he's mad by that, or he doesn't like that. Another biopic, which is Aviator. Leonardo DiCaprio did a great job to where the camera would just go to him. You could see that character did not like certain things, like someone, Adam Scott, touching his peas at the dinner table in the club that they were at, and you would see Leonardo DiCaprio twitch, or just you would get those small instances to where you kind of learn about him as a person. But by the end, same thing. They had a Senate hearing about, is he American? Is he, like, they had that same kind of tone, but then you felt that emotional payoff to where he's like, you know what, this is what I'm going to do. And whether he was a good person or not, the audience was with him on their side. That's what I felt was kind of missing with this, is like, what am I supposed to be feeling? Am I supposed to be feeling sorry for Oppenheimer? Am I supposed to be mad at him for creating this? Or like, what's the point almost?
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of story crammed into 3 hours. I thought it could have been two separate movies, like making the bomb and then the whole aftermath of that.
Yeah.
I'm glad they didn't do that, though. Wouldn't that be typical Hollywood if it was like Oppenheimer?
Yeah, that would have been
one.
And they probably wouldn't have had the second movie. They would have had to film both at the same time.
Yeah. I'm glad they didn't do that. I appreciate that they attempted to fit all, because it is so much.
Yeah.
Fit into, even though it's a long movie, it's a lot to fit into 3 hours.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, that was my overall. I mean, I was let down by it.
I was too.
And but that's okay.
I'll watch it again.
Yeah. I'll probably.
We'll see some behind-the-scenes stuff.
I'm interested to see how they did about the bomb. I know they set up several. They did it with as little CGI as possible, and they used a manual explosion to get that explosion. But they created the explosion in such a way to where it would give them that mushroom cloud effect and everything else. But then they go in there and tweak things like that. But
I didn't know that people were just outside watching the explosion. Mm-hmm. The whole time I'm thinking, because I was on a sub, I'm like, you guys are raining down radioactive. You guys need to get out of there, like, now.
Like, you guys are you're not supposed to lick the mercury.
Yeah,
like,
right. I love that line, like, hey, you should put some of this on. He's like, no, I'm fine. The glass is here. I was just laughing in my seat, like.
Well, that, and I like the guy is like, don't look at the Flash without glasses, and the guy that says that immediately walks out of the bunker, and he's just standing there in open view staring at it.
Yeah.
But no, what I do like, I'm glad that this movie is successful, and a lot of people do like it, because I want to see more directors.
Yeah.
I would love to see I want to see more dramatic movies shot in IMAX, and I want to see what other directors can bring to the table with that large format, because obviously everyone's better at something else than the other person. So I'd love to see other directors be able to bring their own vision to a table in a large format like that for dramatic storytellings, and not just reserve IMAX for big budget comic book movies or big budget like Mission Impossible or anything like
Right.
that.
A Wes Anderson IMAX biopic.
That's fantastic. That'll make its money back in.
This is the last call for a quota with Miley Flanagan.
I agree. Wes Anderson would make his money back in a heartbeat
Right.
if he shot in IMAX.
Well,
no question.
What would that be?
I don't know. It'd probably be about a squirrel.
A squirrel?
Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah, $1 million.
Nope. Well, do you have anything on Oppenheimer?
Nope, I'm good. So I kind of changed my mind. Go see it. I mean, if you're gonna see it in the theater.
Yeah.
Give it a shot.
Yeah.
I mean,
I
I don't know,
again,
I'm starting to talk myself into like it's not as bad as.
No, it's not a bad movie by
Yeah.
all. It's just for me, it just didn't hit emotionally.
Yeah.
And I didn't feel emotionally invested in the story. But I watched it in the middle of the day. I was well rested. I wasn't tired or anything. I wasn't hungover, and it just still didn't work for me. It wasn't my cup of tea, which is fine.
Right. Yeah.
But I'm a dummy, so that's okay.
Oh, you're smart. Don't be so hard on yourself.
But yeah, that's wrapping up our talk with Oppenheimer. We'd like to thank again.
Thanks, Alan.
Thank you, Alan, for chiming in, and thank you, PopCon, for having us. Looking forward to next year, and next time on A Cast with No Name, where you can listen to us on Spotify or YouTube or Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcast. We're on there. Castwithnoname.com. Please follow us, rate us. Hope you enjoyed the show. But next time, we will be talking about the #1 rated video game adaptation
Yes.
film,
To film, yeah.
Werewolves Within. So that'll be next episode, which is currently streaming now on Hulu if you would like to check out that film before our next episode. But again, thank you for having us. I hope you enjoyed the show, and everyone have a good time for day 3 of PopCon Indy.
Till next time, Jay.
Till next time, Matt.